Sheikh Billionaire whispered in Mandarin to frame his partner. The shy waitress translated and destroyed his empire. Chen had learned long ago to be invisible. In the glittering world of the Golden Lotus, Manhattan's most exclusive restaurant, invisibility was survival. She moved between tables like a shadow, refilling crystal glasses and delivering plates of gold-dusted Wagyu beef to clients who never looked at her face. At 26, she had perfected the art of disappearing in plain sight, her eyes downcast, her voice barely above a whisper. The wealthy patrons who dined here never suspected that the shy waitress serving their champagne held a degree in applied linguistics from Columbia University, or that she spoke 7 languages fluently. Tonight, the restaurant hummed with its usual energy. Chandeliers cast warm amber light across white tablecloths, and the soft notes of a piano drifted through the air. Emma carried a tray of appetizers toward table 7, where 2 men sat deep in conversation. One was Marcus Thornton, a distinguished American businessman in his early 50s, his silver hair perfectly styled, wearing a navy Tom Ford suit. The other was Sheikh Khalid al-Rashid, 48, draped in an immaculate white thobe with a black bisht cape that screamed power and wealth. His dark eyes were sharp, calculating and utterly dismissive as Emma approached. She set down their plates with practiced precision. Neither man acknowledged her presence. To them she was furniture, part of the decor. Emma had grown accustomed to this treatment, but tonight something felt different. There was tension in the air, thick and electric. Marcus smiled warmly, discussing the final details of their $800 million partnership deal. Khalid nodded, his expression unreadable, occasionally glancing toward a nearby table where an older Chinese man sat alone, reviewing documents on a tablet. Emma turned to leave when she heard it. A whisper, low and deliberate in perfect Mandarin. Khalid leaned slightly toward the adjacent table, his lips barely moving as he spoke to the Chinese man. Dr. Wei, execute the transfer at dawn. Move all partnership assets to the Cayman accounts. Prepare the forged documents implicating Thornton in the money laundering scheme. By tomorrow afternoon he'll be ruined and in federal custody. Make sure there are no traces back to us. Emma's hand trembled slightly, nearly dropping her tray. She forced herself to keep walking, her heart pounding so violently she was certain everyone could hear it. She understood every single word. The sheikh had just ordered the complete destruction of his business partner. The man sitting across from him, smiling and trusting, completely unaware that his life was about to implode. She glanced back at the table. Marcus raised his glass in a toast, his face radiating genuine friendship and trust. Khalid clinked his glass against Marcus's, his smile cold and predatory. Dr. Wei, the Chinese lawyer, nodded subtly from his table, his fingers already moving across his tablet, setting the betrayal in motion. Emma's mind raced. She should stay out of it. She was nobody, just a waitress trying to survive, trying to pay off the crushing medical debts left behind after her parents' fatal car accident 3 years ago. Getting involved with billionaires and their schemes was dangerous, possibly deadly. But as she watched Marcus laugh at something Khalid said, completely oblivious to the knife poised at his back, something inside her refused to stay silent. She had spent 3 years being invisible, swallowing her pride, hiding her intelligence and education to survive in a world that had crushed her dreams. But tonight, invisibility had given her something powerful: information. And for the first time since her world had collapsed, Chen felt the stirring of purpose, of agency, of the person she used to be before tragedy had forced her into the shadows. The question was no longer whether she could stay silent. The question was whether she had the courage to step into the light, knowing it might destroy her. As the evening progressed and the 2 men finished their meal, Emma made her decision. She couldn't let an innocent man be destroyed by such calculated evil. Not when she had the power to stop it. When Marcus Thornton stood to leave, heading toward the restaurant's private parking garage, Emma did something she had never done before. She followed him. The parking garage was dimly lit, the sound of Marcus's footsteps echoing off concrete walls. Emma's heart hammered as she quickened her pace, her voice catching in her throat. "Mr. Thornton," she called out, her voice barely audible. He didn't hear her. She tried again, louder this time. "Mr. Thornton, please wait." He turned, surprise flickering across his distinguished features. His eyes scanned her uniform, clearly trying to place her. "Yes, can I help you?" Emma's mouth went dry. What was she doing? This man was a billionaire, and she was about to tell him that his trusted partner of 5 years was planning to destroy him based on a whispered conversation in Mandarin. He would think she was insane or worse, trying to scam him. But she had come this far. "You're in danger," she said, the words tumbling out. "Your business partner, Sheikh al-Rashid, he's planning to betray you. Tomorrow morning, he's going to transfer all your partnership assets to offshore accounts and frame you for money laundering. You'll lose everything and you'll be arrested." Marcus stared at her, his expression shifting from confusion to suspicion. "I'm sorry, who are you? And what exactly are you talking about?" "I'm Emma Chen. I was your waitress tonight. I heard Sheikh al-Rashid speaking to his lawyer in Mandarin during dinner. He gave explicit instructions to execute the plan at dawn." She spoke quickly, desperately, knowing how absurd she must sound. Marcus's jaw tightened. "Do you speak Mandarin?" "Yes, fluently, along with 6 other languages. I have a degree in applied linguistics from Columbia." The words felt strange on her tongue, after 3 years of hiding her education, of pretending to be less than she was. Marcus studied her carefully, his businessman's instinct, clearly evaluating whether she was credible or delusional. "What exactly did you hear?" Emma took a deep breath and recited the conversation word for word, including the specific mention of Cayman accounts, the forged documents, and the timeline. She described Dr. Wei, the Chinese lawyer, and his location at the adjacent table. As she spoke, she watched Marcus's face drain of color. "The Cayman accounts," he whispered, more to himself than to her. "Khalid set those up 6 months ago. He said they were for tax optimization on our Middle Eastern operations. I signed the authorization papers without question because I trusted him." His eyes met Emma's, and she saw the moment belief replaced skepticism. "How do I know you're telling the truth? Why would you risk telling me this?" "Because I watched you smile at him, completely trusting, and I couldn't let you walk into that trap. I know what it's like to lose everything. 3 years ago, I was on track for a career in international diplomacy. Then my parents died, and the medical bills destroyed me financially. I've been invisible for so long, just trying to survive. But tonight I heard something I couldn't unhear, and I couldn't stay silent." Her voice cracked slightly. "You don't have to believe me, Mr. Thornton, but if you value your freedom and your life's work, you'll investigate before tomorrow morning." Marcus was silent for a long moment, his sharp mind clearly processing everything. Finally, he reached into his jacket and pulled out a business card. "Meet me at this address tomorrow at 6 a.m. That gives us 3 hours before Khalid's plan supposedly executes. If you're telling the truth, I'll need your help to stop this. If you're lying or mistaken, we'll find out quickly enough." He paused, his expression softening slightly. "And Miss Chen, if you are telling the truth, you may have just saved my life." "I won't forget that." Emma took the card with trembling fingers. As Marcus drove away, she stood alone in the parking garage, realizing that her life had just changed irrevocably. She had stepped out of the shadows, and there was no going back now. What Emma didn't know was that Khalid's security team had been watching. And by morning, the Sheikh would know exactly what she had done. The next morning arrived cold and grey, dawn breaking over Manhattan with reluctant light. Emma stood outside the address Marcus had given her, a sleek office building in Midtown, her stomach twisted in knots. She had barely slept, replaying the conversation over and over, questioning her decision, terrified of the consequences. At precisely 6 a.m., a security guard escorted her to the top floor, where Marcus waited in a glass-walled conference room, surrounded by laptops and documents. "Miss Chen," he greeted her, his expression grave. "I spent the night investigating. I need you to listen to something." He pressed play on a recording device. Emma heard Khalid's voice, speaking in Arabic this time, giving similar instructions to another associate about accelerating the asset transfer. "I had my security team pull surveillance footage from the restaurant. You were right about Dr. Wei. I also discovered that Khalid has been systematically moving assets for months, setting up this betrayal long before last night." Emma felt vindicated but also terrified. "What are you going to do?" "I'm going to stop him, but I need evidence that will hold up in court, not just surveillance footage and your testimony, though both are crucial. I need access to those Cayman accounts, the forged documents, communications between Khalid and his conspirators." "That's where you come in." Marcus leaned forward. "You speak Mandarin, Arabic, and Russian, correct?" Yes, and French, German, Spanish, and Italian. Marcus's eyebrows rose. Impressive. I need you to help me translate documents, intercept communications, and potentially negotiate with Dr. Wei to turn state's evidence. This is dangerous, Miss Chen. Khalid is not a man who tolerates betrayal. If you help me, you'll become a target. But I'm prepared to compensate you generously and protect you. I'll pay off your debts immediately, provide security, and when this is over, I'll help you rebuild your career. You have my word. Emma thought of her parents, of the dreams she had buried, of 3 years spent invisible and powerless. I'll help you, she said firmly. But not just for the money, because what he's doing is wrong and someone needs to stop him. Marcus smiled, a genuine expression of respect. Then let's destroy an empire. For the next several hours they worked frantically. Emma translated encrypted emails in Arabic and Mandarin, revealing the full scope of Khalid's criminal network. The Sheikh wasn't just betraying Marcus. He had been running a massive money laundering operation for years, funneling funds from corrupt regimes and criminal organizations through legitimate businesses. Marcus had been an unwitting front, his reputation providing cover for Khalid's crimes. At 9 a.m. Marcus's phone rang. It was Khalid, his voice smooth and friendly. Marcus, my friend, I hope you slept well. Shall we meet at noon to finalize the paperwork for our expansion deal? Marcus's jaw clenched, but his voice remained calm. Of course, Khalid. I'll see you then. He hung up and looked at Emma. He has no idea we know. That gives us 3 hours to secure the evidence and contact the FBI, but they had underestimated Khalid's reach. At 10 a.m., Emma's phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. She opened it and felt ice flood her veins. It was a photo of her leaving the parking garage last night, followed by a message. Curiosity killed the cat. Miss Chen, stay away from things that don't concern you, or you'll regret it. Marcus saw her face pale. What is it? She showed him the message. Marcus's expression darkened. He knows. We need to move faster. Within minutes, Marcus had Emma relocated to a secure apartment, guarded by his private security team. But Khalid was already escalating. That afternoon, as Emma reviewed documents in the safe house, she received a call from her landlord. Her apartment had been broken into, ransacked. Nothing was stolen, but the message was clear. Khalid could reach her anywhere. Emma felt fear coil in her stomach, but she refused to back down. She had spent 3 years running from her past, hiding from her potential. Not anymore. That evening, she made a decision that would change everything. She contacted Dr. Wei directly, using the phone number she had found in Khalid's emails. The conversation was tense, conducted entirely in Mandarin. Dr. Wei was nervous, clearly aware that his employer was dangerous, but Emma used every ounce of her linguistic and cultural knowledge, appealing to his sense of honor, his fear of American prison, and his desire for immunity. After an hour of careful negotiation, Dr. Wei agreed to meet. The meeting took place in a crowded dim sum restaurant in Chinatown, neutral territory where both felt marginally safe. Dr. Wei arrived looking haggard, his eyes darting nervously. Emma sat across from him, speaking softly in Mandarin, building trust through shared language and cultural understanding. She explained that Marcus was willing to offer full immunity in exchange for testimony and documents. Dr. Wei hesitated, then finally nodded. Sheikh al-Rashid is a monster, he said quietly. I have done terrible things for him, things that haunt me. If you can promise my safety, I will give you everything. Emma felt a surge of triumph. You have my word and Marcus Thornton's word. We will protect you. Dr. Wei reached into his briefcase and pulled out a USB drive. This contains 5 years of communications, financial records, and evidence of crimes spanning 3 continents. With this, you can destroy him. But as Emma reached for the drive, the restaurant's front window exploded. Chaos erupted as Khalid's men stormed in, clearly intent on stopping the exchange. Emma's training from her Columbia days kicked in. She had taken self-defense courses, including Krav Maga, as part of her international security studies. She grabbed Dr. Wei's arm and pulled him toward the kitchen exit, dodging grasping hands. One of Khalid's men blocked their path, a massive figure in a black suit. Emma didn't hesitate. She struck hard and fast, using the techniques she had practiced but never thought she would need in real life. The man went down, surprised by the ferocity of the shy waitress. Emma and Dr. Wei burst through the kitchen and into the alley, where Marcus's security team was waiting. Alerted by Emma's panic button, they escaped, but barely. As they sped away in an armored SUV, Emma clutched the USB drive, her hands shaking with adrenaline. Dr. Wei looked at her with newfound respect. "You are not what you appear to be, Miss Chen." "Neither are you, Dr. Wei," she replied. "Neither are you." Back at the safe house, Marcus downloaded the contents of the USB drive. What they found was staggering. Khalid had been operating a criminal empire worth over $2 billion, with connections to corrupt politicians, arms dealers, and drug cartels. The evidence was irrefutable, meticulously documented by Dr. Wei over years of service. "This is enough to put him away for life," Marcus said, his voice filled with grim satisfaction. "We take this to the FBI tomorrow." But Emma knew Khalid wouldn't go down without a fight, and she was right. The next morning, as they prepared to meet with federal agents, Emma received a call that made her blood run cold. It was Khalid himself, his voice no longer smooth but filled with barely controlled rage. "Miss Chen, you have made a grave mistake. You think you can destroy me. I am untouchable. I have destroyed people far more powerful than a waitress, with delusions of grandeur. Withdraw your cooperation with Marcus Thornton, or I will ensure you lose everything just as I did once before." "What are you talking about?" Emma demanded, though dread was already building in her chest. 3 years ago, I orchestrated the collapse of Meridian Global Solutions, the translation and consulting firm where you worked. Your parents were driving home from the hospital after your father's heart attack, an attack brought on by the stress of your family's financial collapse after Meridian fell. I didn't know you then, Miss Chen, but I destroyed your life nonetheless, and I will do it again, only this time I'll make sure you don't survive. The line went dead. Emma stood frozen, the phone slipping from her hand. Marcus caught her as her knees buckled. "Emma, what did he say?" Through tears of rage and grief, she told him. Marcus's face hardened. "Then we don't just stop him. We destroy him completely. For you, for everyone he's hurt. Are you with me?" Emma wiped her tears, and when she looked up, her eyes blazed with determination. "I'm with you. Let's end this." The FBI opened a formal investigation within hours of receiving the evidence. Special Agent Rebecca Torres, a no-nonsense veteran of financial crimes, took personal charge of the case. She interviewed Emma extensively, impressed by her detailed testimony and linguistic expertise. Dr. Wei was placed in protective custody, and Marcus provided additional documentation of Khalid's fraudulent activities. But Khalid al-Rashid was not a man who surrendered easily. He hired a team of the most expensive lawyers in the country, men who specialized in making problems disappear. He used his political connections to pressure the investigation, calling in favors from senators and diplomats. He launched a media campaign, painting himself as a victim of a vindictive business partner and a delusional waitress seeking attention. The pressure was immense. Emma found herself thrust into the spotlight, her past examined, her credibility questioned. Reporters camped outside the safe house. Online trolls called her a liar, a gold digger, a fraud. There were moments when she wanted to give up, to retreat back into invisibility where it was safe. But Marcus stood by her, and so did Agent Torres. "The evidence doesn't lie," Torres told her during a particularly difficult moment. "And neither do you. Stay strong, Miss Chen. We're going to win this." The case moved to trial faster than anyone expected. Khalid's lawyers tried every delay tactic, but the evidence was too strong, the crimes too serious. 6 months after that fateful night at the Golden Lotus, Emma Chen found herself walking into a federal courthouse, preparing to testify against one of the most powerful men in the world. The courtroom was packed with journalists, lawyers, and spectators. Khalid sat at the defense table, his expression cold and arrogant, dressed in an impeccable charcoal suit. When his eyes met Emma's, she saw pure hatred. But she also saw something else, fear. For the first time, Sheikh Khalid al-Rashid was not in control, and he knew it. Emma took the witness stand, her heart pounding but her voice steady. The prosecutor, a sharp woman named Diana Reeves, guided her through her testimony. Emma described that night at the restaurant in meticulous detail, then translated the recorded Mandarin conversation for the jury. Her translation was flawless, her explanation clear and compelling. But the real moment came when Khalid's lead attorney, a silver-haired man named Harrison Blackwell, began his cross-examination. He tried to rattle her, to make her seem unreliable, to suggest she had misunderstood or fabricated the conversation. "Miss Chen," he said with condescension dripping from every word, "you claim to speak 7 languages fluently. That's quite impressive for a waitress. How can this jury trust that your translation is accurate and not colored by personal bias or misunderstanding?" Emma met his gaze calmly. "I graduated summa cum laude from Columbia University with a degree in applied linguistics. I specialized in Mandarin, Arabic, and Russian, with additional fluency in French, German, Spanish, and Italian. I have published 3 academic papers on cross-cultural communication and worked as a professional translator for Meridian Global Solutions before its collapse. My translation is not only accurate, but I can also provide linguistic analysis of the specific dialect, tone, and cultural context of Sheikh al-Rashid's words. Would you like me to do so now?" The courtroom fell silent. Blackwell, clearly not expecting such a comprehensive response, fumbled for his next question. Emma continued, her confidence growing. "Furthermore, I can explain the financial mechanisms Sheikh al-Rashid discussed, including the specific structure of Cayman Island shell corporations, the process of layering transactions to obscure money laundering, and the legal implications of the forged documents he ordered. I may have been working as a waitress, Mr. Blackwell, but I am far from uneducated or incompetent." Several jurors nodded, clearly impressed. Khalid's face had gone pale, his arrogance cracking. Blackwell tried to recover, but Emma had seized control of the narrative. For every question he asked, she provided detailed, technical answers that demonstrated not only her linguistic expertise, but also her deep understanding of international finance and law. When the prosecutor presented the USB drive from Dr. Wei, Emma translated key documents in real time, explaining complex financial transactions in terms the jury could understand. She connected the dots between Khalid's whispered instructions and the actual crimes committed, building an irrefutable case. The defense tried to discredit Dr. Wei, but his testimony, combined with Emma's translations and Marcus's financial records, created a web of evidence that was impossible to escape. Khalid's lawyers argued that their client was being framed, that the evidence was fabricated, but their arguments rang hollow against the mountain of documentation. On the final day of testimony, something unexpected happened. Khalid, against his lawyer's advice, took the stand. His arrogance had gotten the better of him. He believed he could charm the jury, could explain away the evidence with his charisma and power. It was a catastrophic mistake. Under cross-examination, Khalid became defensive, then angry. When Diana Reeves pressed him about the Mandarin conversation, he snapped. "That waitress is nobody. She's a liar trying to destroy me because I'm successful and she's a failure." She probably didn't even understand what she heard. Diana smiled coldly. "So you admit you were speaking in Mandarin that night?" Khalid realized his error too late. I speak many languages in the course of business. "That doesn't mean—" "You just called Miss Chen a liar for translating a conversation you now admit took place. Which is it, Sheikh al-Rashid? Did the conversation happen or is she lying?" Khalid's composure shattered. He began ranting about how people like Emma didn't understand the complexities of international business, how she had no right to interfere in matters beyond her comprehension. With every word, he revealed his true nature, arrogant, cruel, and utterly contemptuous of anyone he considered beneath him. The jury watched in stunned silence as one of the world's most powerful men unraveled before their eyes. When Khalid finally stepped down, his lawyers looked defeated. They knew the case was lost. The jury deliberated for less than 4 hours. When they returned, the forewoman stood and delivered the verdict, guilty on all counts. Fraud, money laundering, conspiracy, racketeering. The list went on, each count another nail in the coffin of Khalid's empire. The judge, a stern woman named Judith Martinez, showed no mercy during sentencing. "Sheikh al-Rashid, you used your wealth and power to commit crimes on a massive scale, destroying lives without remorse. You believed yourself above the law, untouchable. This court disagrees. I hereby sentence you to 25 years in federal prison without possibility of parole. Additionally, you are ordered to forfeit $2.3 billion in illegally obtained assets, which will be returned to victims and the United States government." Khalid's face went ashen. For the first time, Emma saw him as he truly was, not a powerful sheikh but a criminal facing the consequences of his actions. As marshals led him away in handcuffs, his eyes found Emma's one last time. She met his gaze without flinching, and in that moment, she felt the weight of 3 years of pain, loss, and invisibility finally lift from her shoulders. Outside the courthouse, Emma was surrounded by reporters, but Marcus's security team guided her to a waiting car. Marcus himself was beaming, his reputation restored, his company saved. "You did it, Emma," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "You saved me and you brought down a monster." "I will never be able to thank you enough," Emma smiled, exhausted but triumphant. "We did it together." True to his word, Marcus had already paid off all of Emma's debts. But he had also done something more. He had offered her a position as Director of International Relations at Thornton Global, with a salary that made her gasp when she saw the offer letter. "You're brilliant, Emma," he had told her. "You deserve to use your talents, not hide them. Come work with me. Help me build something good." Emma had accepted, and over the following months she threw herself into her new role. She traveled the world, negotiated deals in multiple languages, and slowly rebuilt the confidence and sense of purpose that had been stolen from her 3 years ago. She also discovered that she had become something of a celebrity. Her story had gone viral, inspiring countless people who felt invisible or powerless. But the most unexpected development was her relationship with Marcus. What had begun as a professional partnership had evolved into something deeper. They spent long hours working together, and in those quiet moments between meetings and negotiations, they discovered a connection that went beyond gratitude or professional respect. 6 months after the trial, Marcus invited Emma to dinner at the Golden Lotus, the restaurant where everything had begun. Emma felt a strange sense of déjà vu as she walked through the familiar doors, but this time she wasn't wearing a waitress uniform. She was dressed in an elegant navy dress, her hair styled, her confidence evident in every step. Marcus was waiting at a private table, the same table where he had sat with Khalid that fateful night. But the atmosphere was completely different now, warm, intimate, filled with possibility rather than betrayal. "I wanted to bring you back here," Marcus said as Emma sat down, "because this is where my life changed, where you saved me, not just from Khalid but from my own blindness. I had become so focused on success and wealth that I had forgotten what truly matters: integrity, courage, and the people who stand by you when everything falls apart." Emma felt her heart race. "Marcus," he reached across the table and took her hand. "Emma, over these past months, I've watched you transform from someone hiding in the shadows to someone who shines brighter than anyone I've ever known. You're brilliant, courageous, and kind. You challenge me, inspire me, and make me want to be a better man. I know there's an age difference, and I know our relationship started in the most unusual circumstances, but I can't deny what I feel anymore." He paused, his eyes searching hers. "I'm in love with you, Emma Chen, and I'm hoping, perhaps foolishly, that you might feel the same way." Emma felt tears prick her eyes, but they were tears of joy. For 3 years she had believed her life was over, that she would never again experience happiness or love or purpose. But here, in this moment, she realized that sometimes the worst tragedies lead to the most unexpected blessings. "I love you too, Marcus," she said, her voice breaking with emotion. "You gave me back my life, my future, my sense of self. You saw me when I was invisible, and you believed in me when I had stopped believing in myself." Marcus stood and moved to her side of the table, pulling her into his arms. They kissed, and in that moment Emma felt complete. The shy waitress who had once served tables in this very room had become a woman of power, purpose, and love. As they left the restaurant that night, hand in hand, Emma looked up at the glittering Manhattan skyline. The city that had once seemed so cold and indifferent now felt full of promise. She thought of her parents, and she knew they would be proud of the woman she had become. Khalid al-Rashid's empire had fallen, destroyed by the very person he had dismissed as insignificant. Justice had been served, not through violence or revenge, but through courage, intelligence, and the refusal to stay silent in the face of evil. Emma Chen was no longer invisible. She was a force to be reckoned with, a woman who had proven that true power comes not from wealth or status, but from integrity, bravery, and the willingness to stand up for what is right, no matter the cost. And as she walked into her future with Marcus by her side, she knew that this was only the beginning. The world was full of injustice, full of people who needed someone to see them, to fight for them, to refuse to let evil triumph. Emma had found her calling, and she would spend the rest of her life using her voice, her intelligence, and her courage to make a difference. The shy waitress had become a warrior, and her story was just beginning.